Mount Olympus Water and Theme Park is Wisconsin's signature amusement park. And yes, notice I did call it an amusement park there, not a theme park. I think calling this place a theme park is a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to get into that later. You can find this place in Wisconsin Dells. They're home to a total of 5 roller coasters and a fairly large water park. I've had the opportunity of visiting Mount Olympus twice now, and both the experiences I had were very different. So I'm going to be talking about both of them in this review, simply because if the two experiences I've had were that different, I wouldn't be surprised if your experience too could be very different depending on when you go. From what I gathered, this place is definitely a hit or miss, so just keep that in mind if you're planning on visiting. But let's get into the basics. Let's talk about when you first get to the park. First off, the location within Wisconsin Dells is perfect. It's literally right off a main road. You turn into the parking lot and it is free parking, which is fantastic. This really comes in handy if you want to come and go as you please. The way they have their tickets set up is with a wristband as opposed to a ticket, so all you have to do is show your wristband. That way they know you're in the park, and that's how you get into the front entrance. But here's the thing. At different points throughout my visit at Mount Olympus, there was not even anyone at the front entrance, meaning anyone could have just walked in. And half the time, they didn't even scan it or ask to see it. Even though it's a wristband, it does get you on all the attractions, so it's not like a pay-per-ride system. Once you enter in the park, you have access to all the attractions except for those that are an upcharge. But I still thought it was a little odd that depending on who is standing at the front entrance, you may or may not even need the wristband to enter. I mean, obviously, you should pay for one. They say you're required to have one in order to enter. But on my most recent visit before the park opened, we were staying outside the entrance, and there's no turnstiles, there's no gate closing off access. You literally could just walk in. And that right there was my first initial sign that, yeah, okay, this place is gonna be pretty different. And it is. This is unlike any park that I've been to in America. And I don't necessarily mean that in a good way. They do some things well, and I'm going to talk about that later, but there's a lot of things that are very strange about Mount Olympus. Another one that I wanted to highlight before you get into the park is there's no security or bag check. Again, sometimes when I would enter the park, because I'd, come and go throughout the day, they'll ask to see inside the bag, but sometimes not at all. Once you actually are past the front entrance, you walk through a gift shop. That's the main gift shop in the park. They actually have a decent selection of merch there, but there's no way around it. You pretty much have to go through the gift shop, unless when you visit the park, the gift shop is closed. Then they do make it so that you can just go around it. But there's no grand entrance for this place. The pathways are very small, very narrow, and the layout in general doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's no flow or anything. It feels like the rides were just put there and then they designed the pathways wherever there was room left over. So when you're walking in, you walk right past Zeus's main drop, and the bottom of the drop is literally right next to the pathway. I mean, I kid you not, you could stick your arm out and touch Zeus's track. And you can also do that with Cyclops. I don't recommend it, but the fact that you can get that close is insane. Someone's seriously gonna get hurt. I mean, between that and the loose security, I already was like, okay, maybe safety is not the #1 priority at Mount Olympus. So you're walking past these wind coasters, and one of the things that I gotta mention, that because you have Cyclops, Zeus, and Hades all right next to each other, it's very tough to distinguish which ride is which, especially if it's your first time there. They all look the same. It's one of the neat things about Mount Olympus is that the 3 main wind roller coasters, they're all shoved into a tight space. It's kind of an interesting dynamic that you're literally walking among coaster track. So I do think that is neat. But in no way is it aesthetic or anything. I don't think looks are this place's strong suit. You won't even really find flowers or anything in the park. To line the pathways, they just kind of have rocks lying around. So the first ride that you're going to get to when you make it to the entrance is Zeus. And outside each of the ride entrances, they have these LED signs. They'll tell you whether they're open or closed. But it's kind of weird because they actually say waiting time, but they don't list the wait time. They just say if they're open or closed. So I'm like, what? I mean, let's say Hades has an hour line. They're not going to tell you that. So already I could see some things that if I were in charge, I personally would fix. But with each of the main wind roller coasters, you're going to find a couple things. First one is one train operations. Because of the way they've set up with the brake runs, they only have one train. There's not enough block brakes for them to run 2 trains on some of these rides. Their wind coasters only have one train. And here's the thing, I don't even think they do annual maintenance on them. The PTC trains, the gravity group train on Hades was fine, but those PTC trains on Pegasus, Zeus, Cyclops, they look terrible. When we were sitting on Cyclops, we looked down on the floor and there was a hole in it. You could look straight through and see the bottom of the track. And on top of that, you're gonna find some pretty poor operations at this park, mostly on Hades. With that ride, they will not send it unless the train is full. They say it's because it has a valleying issue, but that's really before they did some upgrades to the coaster. They've kept that policy ever since. And so if you go on a dead day, you will be sitting there waiting for people to show up. Like, you might have to go out onto the pathways and rally up people to go ride this ride so that they can send it. I went on a busy day and I'd still be waiting like 20 minutes between cycles. The operations here are not good. And part of the problem is the staffing. On most of the rides here, it's one ride op. The only exception is Hades. There's two. So be prepared to wait. But once you actually get on it, another thing I thought was a little strange, their loose article policy is very loose. You can hold your phone on the ride if you want to. They just tell you that they're not liable if you lose it, but they won't tell you to put it away. That blows my mind. That is a huge red flag for me. I have almost been hit in the face with several phones before on roller coasters. If you ask me, it's an accident waiting to happen. But, of course, they'll tell you, you really should take off your sunglasses, you might lose them. But I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You won't tell me to secure loose articles, but you'll make me take off my sunglasses, which have a strap on them? That's not even a loose article at that point, but no, I'm allowed to have a freaking camera on the ride and they don't care. It's very inconsistent. I guess Mount Olympus just prefers to do things differently, I suppose. One time when we hit the brake run on Hades, there was a maintenance worker standing right there on the catwalk. The train proceeded to sit there for about 5 minutes while he attended to the wheels. Typically, parks do that when there's, not guests sitting there out in the hot sun, strapped in. So they either have a no better time like the present attitude, or we don't really care, we'll just do it whenever we feel like attitude. Whatever floats your boat, I guess. But wait, it gets weirder. At one point when we were on Cyclops, when we hit the brake run, we didn't come to a full stop, took a sharp turn into the station, and completely overshot it. They did manage to stop us before we completely went around the course a second time, but at that moment we were beyond the point of no return. The ride op realized that she couldn't let us out of the train, so she had to send it around a whole nother time. And what I think is funny about that is I've heard so many stories of that happening. So backing a little bit away from the wooden roller coasters and talking about just the main park in general, the top part of the park, pretty much until you get to Cyclops' entrance, is made up of very narrow pathways. There's actually a decent hill going up to the front entrance when you're going past Zeus. That's really the only terrain change. Pretty much everything else is level. And once you pass Cyclops' entrance, the place opens up. It becomes much more of a main midway, a big common area where there's tons of people walking around, and it's a lot less of a bottleneck. Some of the rides you're going to see, they have multiple go-kart tracks here. The first time I went, only 2 of them were open, but the last time I was at the park, all of them were operating. The Trojan horse track actually looked pretty cool. I didn't get the chance to do it, but I was told it's actually not that good because they don't let you go through the horse anymore, which is kind of deceiving because right outside the entrance, right next to the road, you can see the go-kart track that goes through the horse, but it's not open anymore. But Mount Olympus is known for their go-karts. That's the other thing that they're known for besides their wooden roller coasters. So if you're really wanting to spend a lot of time here, definitely plan on doing some of the go-karts. A few other things I thought were a little strange. They'll just have random concrete paths everywhere that were from either past attractions and they just left them there. We saw a fence around a concrete square that said this ride is currently closed, and there's literally nothing there. It's a block of concrete. Also, when we were over by Cyclops, kind of smelled a little weird. Not gonna lie, it smelled like dog crap. Other rides over there include a small children's coaster. You either need to be under 54 inches to ride or have a child, so I do not have that coaster credit. You can also find a tower swing called Manticore, give you a nice view of the surrounding area, and they do have a small SNS Scream Swing, and something kind of weird, it's an upcharge attraction. Little odd if you ask me. So that's it for the main theme park area. Let's work our way down once you get towards the water park. And I'd say that from what I gathered, most people do come here for the water park. It's included with your admission. When you enter, you can get a free towel, plenty of changing rooms, you can get a locker to put your stuff in. And there's one attraction here that I think Mount Olympus is really known for, and that is the 9-foot waves. Poseidon's Rage is a massive wave that comes about every 2 minutes. And it's not like other wave pools where it's like once one wave comes, they all go for a couple minutes and then it'll be calm and then it'll start up again. This is literally just one wave that comes about every 2 minutes. And it is insane. I mean, it will knock you over. If there was a downside though, the water is absolutely freezing. So if you go there when it's hot, it'll probably feel great. But when we went to the water park, it was like 70 degrees. So it wasn't the most pleasant. Some other water park attractions, they have a mat racer. You get some really nice airtime there. You can race your friends. There's a family raft ride, a really fun play structure, and even an indoor water park. Although this was closed when I went, so I can't really speak for the attractions in there because I've yet to do it. They also, a little bit further down, have an indoor theme park. And this is pretty pathetic. I mean, this is essentially just an arcade. There's a few very small flat rides in there, just children's attractions, and you can tell that it's missing something. And it's because it literally is. There used to be a wild mouse here, but then it killed someone. So they got rid of it, and now the indoor theme park is kind of pointless. Frankly, I wouldn't even recommend going in it. It's not worth your time. If it's really hot out, then you could go in there to cool off, but don't go in there for the rides, because for some reason they thought it would be a good idea to buy two of the same attraction and put one set inside and the other set outside. It literally makes no sense. So if you ask me, they really need to start putting more attention into the indoor park, do something there, but you know, also the outdoor park. There's some things that definitely need some work done. In my opinion, there's very few bathrooms in the park. The food is pretty basic. It's not anything to shout at all. The building facades look cool. Some of these shops look amazing. I mean, they were closed when we went, but the outside looked cool. I wish there was more theming like that throughout the entire park, because with the theming around Mount Olympus, it kind of blends this line where it's like, okay, yeah, this is very tacky, but it does look cool, but they only went halfway with it, so it ends up just kind of looking strange. So to conclude this review of Mount Olympus, if you can't tell by the tone of my voice, I don't particularly think this place is very good. In fact, I'd go as far as saying it is the worst run theme park in America. The actual park itself is not bad, it's just the way the owners are treating it. I feel like this place could be so much better if someone else took over, did some simple changes, maybe some overhauls of certain areas. This place could be really good. I think if you go here, you can have a fun time if the things that I talked about don't bother you. I did not particularly like this place my first visit, but the second time, once I did the water park and more rides in general were open, I had a better experience. It was more fun. I mean, the first time I went here, both Hades and Zeus were closed. So if you want any tips from me, don't go to the park in September. Go during the main season when everything's actually open. In my opinion, the saving grace with this place is their roller coasters. The three largest one coasters, Hades, Zeus, and Cyclops, are all really good. I do really like them, and they're the only reason I'll come back to this place. But if you're trying to prioritize parks that you should visit in America, I don't blame you if this is one you want to skip. The entire park kind of feels like a tourist trap. In the advertisements, you think it's going to be this awesome Greek-themed park, but it's nowhere near as well executed as it could be. So if you're looking for a nice theme park to take the family, I wouldn't really recommend this place. But if you are looking for some pretty good wind coasters, then yeah, come by Mount Olympus and check it out. So those are my thoughts on Mount Olympus Water and Theme Park in Wisconsin Dells. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of this place, if you agree with what I've had to say, and if I'm wrong, let me know why. Of course, if you're new to the channel, I'd love if you could subscribe and stay tuned for more content. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.